What up, virtual people? Welcome to episode 78 of VCR Redux. We take your favorite franchises out of the analog era and bring them back to 2022. I'm your host, pop culture punk Chris Stiles, joined as always by my co-host with the most, film professor Ian Clink.
How you doing, everybody?
And we have two radical guests on the show tonight. First up, our own tri-host from Rick Barth and the Line. Oh, Mickey, you're so fine. Mac Daddy Mickey Torres is on the show.
What's up, everyone?
And rounding out this righteous crew, the host of Fandom Spotlite, soon to launch, still fabulous, Bobby Masters on the show.
Bobby!
He may be frozen in time.
Hi, everybody.
Oh, okay.
There he is.
There he is. All right. Anyway, we are here today to honor the greatest juvenile delinquent in cinema history and to pay our respect to the film that taught us the difference between squares and drapes. That's right, folks. This world needs Crybaby 2, Cry Hard, and we're here to give it to you. But before we can tell Tojo to beat it, creep, we need to talk about how Crybaby came into our lives and what we love about it. And of course, that includes everyone watching in the live chat as well. Was Crybaby love at first Laserdisc, Vital VHS? Hit us up in the live chat and let us know how you discovered this masterpiece of a film.
I actually watched Crybaby on Laserdisc. I actually really want you to acknowledge it in our chat. I really
just want someday someone to acknowledge that
just
it was Laserdisc.
Need to say on Laserdisc, I flipped it over and I watched Johnny Depp cry. Like I want that. Like there's things in this world that you want. You want the Phillies to win the World Series, right? You want Mickey to just finally just grow up, but you also want Crybaby on Laserdisc, right?
That
like
you want more Hawaiian shirts from me. I know everyone watching at home wants that.
I want to bring it out into the world. Like I wanted it to float away. Just go away.
Well, I'll tell you what I want. I want to hear how Bobby discovered Crybaby. What age did you first watch this film, sir? Is Bobby frozen again? Oh no. Well, he's at a loss for words at the moment.
Can you hear me? Is everything again?
Yeah,
kind of can hear you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. You're frozen, but I can hear you.
Oh man.
Oof,
Let me try and fix this.
Okay. Well, in the meantime, Mickey, how old were you the first time you saw Crybaby?
1990. I don't know if I saw it in 1990. I saw it on VHS. I rented it on VHS.
It's not frozen for me. I'm gonna leave and come back.
Yeah.
All right.
Mickey, Bobby will return shortly, folks. So VHS, we're talking rental Palmer Video, I presume?
Palmer Videos, yeah. And I'm like, the thing is like I'm a huge Johnny Depp fan. I've always been a huge Johnny Depp fan. I love Johnny Depp movies, even when he's trying to be commercial, like Astronaut's Wife or whatever case may be. I love.
All right, now stop. You did not watch Arizona Dream. Knock it off. Stop being that guy. You did not watch it. No, you did.
I'm not gonna say that I watched every Johnny Depp movie. I'm just saying that I do love Johnny Depp movies. I saw The Tourist.
How'd you
that was awful.
that?
Yeah, Johnny Depp, and it was interesting to me.
What's the one movie that he directed? Like it was a Marlon Brando movie that he won't let anybody see.
That's the one where he's like the Native American Indian.
Yeah. You guys know what I'm talking about?
I've
Chris,
seen bits of pieces of that.
I don't know. He played the Lone Ranger.
It's black and white. It's black and white.
Movie.
Right?
It's the only movie I think he directed, and it starred him and Marlon Brando. And it's one of those like he doesn't let it be seen except for like a couple of film festivals here and there kind of thing.
Anyway,
I don't know, but yeah. So I saw it.
Yeah, everyone knows in the chat.
I saw it on VHS, and I know, like I said, I'm a huge Elvis fan too, and like this movie drips of like, rockabilly.
Guys?
Yep,
Yeah,
you're back.
Okay. Jesus, sorry about that.
No problem.
No worries.
Problem. So we just caught Mickey's first time watching Crybaby. How did you discover it? What age? How old were you when you first saw Crybaby?
Fun fact, Crybaby was actually the last of the John Waters films I actually saw. I think I was about like 13 years old for it to be my last John Waters film to see. And I got it on VHS because it was the last movie of his to be released on DVD in 2005, and I got it in like 2002. So it was still on VHS at Suncoast Video. Shout out, miss that place.
Yeah, I miss Suncoast Videos.
Suncoast was the happiest place in the mall for sure.
It was find that weird video that nobody else had.
Oh yeah.
They had their horror section was awesome.
Oh my
god!
God.
Like everything from Altered States to Eraserhead to Dario Argento, classics.
They had everything.
They
had
so
everything.
Good. Especially horror. Their horror collection was amazing. So you watched this on VHS 2002. You are, I'm guessing, still a young tot back then.
Yeah, I was in 6th grade. I just went on my John Waters. He was the first director I saw whose films I sought out. After I saw Hairspray,
wow.
I was like, okay, let's look his other movies. So I transitioned from Hairspray right to Pink Flamingos. So I jumped right in.
You were so much cooler than I could ever be. I love that Crybaby was the last of his movies that you discovered. It doesn't get any cooler than that.
It's only because it was the last one that I could find. I went by the ones I could find in the stores. And they had just released these 2-packs.
Female Trouble was easier to find than Pink Flamingos than Crybaby.
Yes.
Well, they had just released these 2-packs of Pink Flamingos, Female Trouble, Desperate Living, Polyester, Hairspray, and Pecker, and they were all produced by the same film company.
Right.
And then Crybaby was produced by something completely different. So was
Universal.
Serial Mom. Yeah, Serial Mom was different as well.
Serial Mom, I think, was Columbia, but it was one of the majors. Either way, it might have been New Line.
It's shown on HBO, so it's it
could have been Warner's, but that's erroneous to the conversation at this point. So having been a John Waters aficionado already at this point, did you what was your take on the film? Were you oh, I see what this is, the corporate, this is the the Hollywood version of a John Waters movie? Or did you think oh god, I love this?
It was more the latter. It was more just me falling completely head over heels in love with it. The time period, I was always obsessed with the greaser look and attitude and all that jazz, and the cast, their looks, Johnny Depp, obviously at his best look wise ever was at this time period.
Oh yeah.
Yes,
definitely. Hands down.
He never looked better, and he never will. But that's a different conversation. But even besides that, you got my girl Ricky Lake, you got Tracy Lords, and that was I was introduced to her right then and there. You got Iggy Pop and Susan Terrell.
Susan Terrell,
good.
after I had such a crush on Susan Terrell from this movie. Like, I mean,
love that
I just,
journey
I know
for
it's
you.
weird. I know it's weird, but I thought that she was hot. Like, I mean, I don't know what it was, but it just,
She's a girl, like she's the mom, right? Like
she's a grandma.
She was the grandma, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Just
God, Ramona Ricketts is just fucking gold. Like this movie, and I'll get into, more detail, but like she kind of anchors like one of the first, like the movie could go anywhere from that like high school shot scene. They cross the road, okay, we get it. He's the bad guy, she's a good girl, blah 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 blah. But then you get Turkey Point and the wonderful Susan Terrell and Ramona Ricketts and Iggy Pop. And like, I know it sounds weird, but like Ramona Ricketts is like the grandma that I love my grandma to death, but like I wish I had another one like fucking Ramona Ricketts. The way she's like, negotiating the price of that muffler, like, do you want to do business or do you want to get the hell out and stand in line at Sears? Like, you a hard woman. And just her immediately responding with, I'll see you in hell, Dupree. Like, something about that makes me fucking lose it. And like, even though I've seen the movie 1,000 times, there's still a lot of lines like that that'll still make me crack up.
And that's her entrance too. That's her entrance.
Yeah, that's like who the fuck I am, boom.
Exactly. I love her.
It took a while to get the family. It took a while to get the family correlation with everybody, because I'm sitting there going like, wait a minute. So that's his uncle. That's his grandma. Pepper's his sister. I had to put all the pieces together, but it wasn't really like laid out too like easily.
But like the way she like comes up and like compliments everybody is just like so fun. Like she's like, you're young, stupid, and mean. Just how you should be. And then like
you put the tea in tough. You could be eating nails for breakfast. Like, so good.
And then my favorite, which is what I tell myself when I get ready every day, is all painted up like trash. You sure are pretty in them tight clothes, all painted up like trash.
Absolute gold. I became like a Susan Terrell fan. This was, this movie introduced me to almost everyone in the movie. I didn't know who Tracy Lords was, Ricky Lake, but I definitely became a Susan Terrell fan and would spot her. Like, I was watching like a Poison Ivy like 7 or something as a kid.
Poison Ivy 3, The New Seduction with
that's
Jamie
the one,
Presley.
Right?
Yeah.
Jamie Presley's first movie. That was Jamie Presley's first movie.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
No internet is anybody else talking about Poison Ivy, the New Seduction. God.
Well, guess what? I'm going to be talking about it on my show. So eat those words.
Those words. All right. So Ian, tell us about the first time you watched Crybaby, and I gotta know how old is young Ian watching Crybaby?
I'll be honest, Crybaby was one of the, I'm kind of like Bobby. I was one of the last John Waters, so only a couple years ago did I come to Crybaby. I do know my sister was obsessed with, it was one of those, I remember her watching Crybaby a lot, and it wasn't one that I watched with her.
It's a musical too. It's a musical.
It was like,
the best musical ever made.
But even without the musical,
I don't know if it's the best musical ever made.
The soundtrack slapped.
Dude, that soundtrack is fucking gold.
One sound.
Like even without the musicals, like the music they chose from the 50s.
It's good stuff. No, I'm not saying the soundtrack's bad, but I'm just saying, like, as far as musical goes, Purple Rain is the ultimate of musicals, if you want to say.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not like a musical in the traditional sense.
Not
where,
like, the traditional
you're
sense.
Facing the camera, you're breaking the fourth wall. And,
I could see
you just
that.
have invisible backing musicians. Like Purple Rain is a rock movie. That's a movie
but you know
that
what?
rocks. I put that in the Eddie McCruiser's category.
I'll take another one over this one, and that's actually odd. Moulin Rouge.
This is why I can't.
Moulin Rouge, get out. Just get out.
Moulin Rouge is great. I'm sorry. This
is why I can't stand Mickey. All right. First off, I mean, like, you're tarnishing like Fiddler on the Roof. You're tarnishing Quadrophenia. You're bashing the wall. For gosh,
God,
Mickey, the wall.
No.
Right? Did you watch any of these? Were you awake?
I'm a huge Who fan. So obviously I saw Quadrophenia, but I do not like that album or the movie.
Okay, shut off his mic. Like, I'm done.
Right.
Like literally, I can't do this anymore. Like,
all right, so it's not Ian's
but like
favorite
even like
musical of
like
all time.
Fiddler on the Roof. You're gonna take Fiddler on the Roof over
No!
Crybaby? Over Crybaby?
Like, my sister would watch it, and this was in the time when it was like, you know, she loved Grease and would watch Grease all the time. So somebody said, watch Crybaby if you love Grease. I remember that.
I can see that.
Yeah. But
I saw Crybaby before I saw Grease.
Well, I'll tell you.
Wow.
Production,
Fuck
though.
Yeah.
Because I lump, you know, it's not just Crybaby. I would lump it in the John Waters camp. Like, I love John Waters. I've done a few reviews on John Waters here on Fandom Spotlight. Like, got to actually, you know, meet John Waters. You know, fantastic director, great guy. But I got
that Lloyd Kaufman caliber of incorruptible.
Well, what I love about, you know, John Waters, you know, how I got introduced to John Waters was, of course, Hairspray and Polyester. My parents loved those movies. So they actually got the New Line VHS John Waters collection for me for one Christmas. And they didn't really know the history of John Waters. They knew Polyester, they knew Hairspray. So as I'm sitting there watching Pink Flamingos with my mother and my father.
No.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah.
How old were you?
In high school. And it's kind of like,
it's still not okay.
Yeah.
Look, you look at each other and you go, all right. And my mother going like, I didn't know. I'm Polyester. I didn't know, you know.
I mean, I don't think it's a horrible situation because it's awkward, but I mean, like, still, chef's kiss to the films, you know.
Well, you know, I got
That's true. John Waters would love that. That like a high school
that.
boy and his mother watched this together. Like,
so, you know, years later, I got to actually meet John Waters, and
have we all?
I have not. I have not met him.
I met him briefly.
Yeah, I mean, and I got to actually, it was in one of his live shows, and he asked the audience for questions, and nobody was standing up. So I stood up and I said, you know, Mr. Waters, you know, thank you so much, but can I ask you why you chose Surfing Bird for the infamous scene in Pink Flamingos?
That's a great question.
Oh, what? And he goes, doesn't snapped right away, said, doesn't that song sound like a gaping butthole? Like, that's a perfect song.
Was that at New Jersey HorrorCon?
I know this is in Charleston, South Carolina.
I feel like the same thing happened at New Jersey HorrorCon. Like, someone asked that exact question and he did the exact instant, like, does that song sound like a gaping butthole?
Like that's beautiful though, you know, like it just, so I literally, you know, a couple of years ago I read, you know, a couple of his books. I read Shock Value. Know It All. Wonderful writer. And then I decided, let me do what, you know, what we all do. Let me get the catalog and start going down, you know, see the movies I hadn't seen. So I watched Pecker, and the only one I haven't watched is Cecil B. Demented. It's the only John Waters movie I haven't seen, but, you know, watched Female Trouble, got the Criterion Blu-ray of those, you know, they're all wonderful, but that was when I went out and I got the DVD of Crybaby. I said, let me watch Crybaby. And I mean, it was a great film. You know, watching Crybaby as I was older and being more of a fan of the 50s and that time period and what John Waters was trying to do. Because again, he was trying to do the juvenile delinquent movies. And if you know the history of those movies, if you watched Crybaby Killer with Jack Nicholson, if you've watched, you know, High School Reform, if you watched all of those, you know, Runaway Daughters, you know, those movies, he really captured those movies perfectly. He really did. You know, Crybaby is a great example of a juvenile delinquent movie. Mm-hmm. So yeah, so that's when I watched Crybaby. So it was just only a couple of years ago.
Oh wow. So mature, so different from my story, which I will get into in a sec. But first, I want to say hi to everyone in the live chat. I see some familiar names in there: Angie Saunders, Alex Bonafonte, again Angie and Mike Saunders, the mashup geniuses. Alex says he's actually never seen it. Angie says loved Crybaby on VHS. Also says the only place you're going to sing is in jail. The quotes are flying fast and hard. So Angie was asking if it was Lone Ranger was the movie we were talking about before, but I guess weird.
Yeah, I can't
weird
remember.
Movie where Johnny Depp and Marlon Brando film each other going to the bathroom in the sake of honesty or some shit that we'll never see. And honestly, I don't really care that much. Like, I love Brando and I love Johnny Depp, but like, I'm sure if no one's ever seen it, it's got to be because it's not genius. Otherwise, they'd be like, check out this amazing thing we made,
if it was both of them in their heyday, I would love to see it, but those time periods never coincide.
Johnny Depp do it, and he won't release it, so he'll only take it around to a couple of film festivals here and there, but it's not there's a whole story. If you look online, somebody's got to know the name of the movie. I just can't remember it. But
either way, I mean, Brando, let's be real, Brando never cared again after The Godfather. Like, he was still able to do some great work, like in Apocalypse Now, but he didn't care.
He didn't care after On the Waterfront. He was just like, I'm getting paid.
Yeah, true, exactly. Even before The Godfather, right? But I think he needed The Godfather to sort of like win back his, that was his comeback of the time, Anyway, so getting to my first time watching.
Let me correct before you do this. I got to correct an error of what I just said.
Okay.
That man did care for Last Tango in Paris. That is strong acting in that movie. He did care about that movie.
I am embarrassed to say that I actually haven't seen Last Tango in Paris, so I'll take your word for it on that one. But I did see a little film called Cry Baby when I was about 5 years old, and it was like an amazing piece of contraband just calling out to me in the house. I had like so little awareness of who Johnny Depp was. I was 5 years old. I had seen him on like the back of a Pop-Tart box, and I'm sure corporate America loves this. That's the first way I knew it was like, oh, Johnny Depp.
21 Jump Street,
must have been from 21 Jump Street.
I would love to get this Pop-Tart box. First off,
it's got to be out there somewhere. Any rate, and then I sort of would recognize him on like teen magazines when you're like walking the aisles, and shit, and like looking at that. Okay, that's that guy. Yeah, that's that guy. Everyone knows. Oh, the girls love him. Blah blah blah. Okay. So then I remember recognizing the poster for Cry Baby and thinking, well, that looks like a good movie. Like, that's a cool poster, and that looks like interesting. Like, I kind of want to see what this is about. And I remember thinking it must have come from my sister, that this tape was sitting around my house. I had no idea how it got there, but I see it and I'm like, oh yeah, that's the movie with the guy. I'm going to put it in and press play. And I remember
the movie with the guy.
That's that movie with that guy, like a 5-year-old. What do I know? And I have no idea what it's really about. I have no idea that it takes place in the 50s or anything, but I put it in and it's like, sort of like, I was like, well, if it sucks, which it might, I'll just walk, whatever. I'll just walk away and, we'll go play video games in the next room or something. And I remember feeling like having a low bar, like sort of thinking this might be a flop or something, or having like some awareness that this didn't do well in theaters. Whatever it was, the first time I had low expectations and was just pleasantly surprised. Like, I just loved everything about this movie. I became instantly obsessed with it, like to the fact that like by the time at 5 years old, yes, that's crazy. This was one of the early beta Chris concepts of what cool is. You know what I mean? Like, I had like Marty McFly, I had Daniel LaRusso, and then like the next thing was fucking Crybaby Wade Walker. I was like, this guy is cool as hell. He's got the leather jacket, like he's not a square. Like, obviously you have to hate the preps and the squares. Like, come on now. This guy just doesn't give a fuck. Like, he gets off his motorcycle and scratches his balls in front of like the whole whatever conservatory Mrs. Vernon Williams runs. He's got the bike, he's got the gang. What does Crybaby not have in this movie? That, like, seriously, he's cooler than fucking James Dean. He's like, does not get any cooler than Johnny Depp and Crybaby, and doesn't get any cooler of a gang either. I mean, like you already said, you got Tracy Lords, Susan Terrell, Iggy Pop, Ricky Lake, like, just perfection.
Tim McGuire and Darren Burroughs. We got to name drop them.
Dude, you got, well, and even like the other like Extrapolis people, like Polly Bergen as Mrs. Vernon Williams is amazing. Patty Hearst, Your Honor, can we take Wanda the fuck home? Like,
yeah.
That shit is gold.
Yeah, that was Patty Hearst's first movie. That was Patty Hearst's first film.
And a little trivia about it too. the reason they had to beep it was because the movie had to be PG-13. It was in John Waters' contract because you're making a movie with a teen idol. Teenagers have to go see it. But you can't have 3 fucks in a PG-13 movie. You can have 1 fuck, and that's it. So they had to, you know, like the beeps, like, what does beep mean, darling? Like, oh, it's just a teenage nonsense word kids to use to make themselves feel all grown up. Like, oh, Your Honor, can we take Wanda the fuck home? Like, it's just so good the way she delivers that line.
And she's so confident in it. Like, Your Honor.
Like, yeah, so earnest about it. Like, it's so good. I mean, every scene has lines like that, you know, if there was only one of them in this movie, you would remember, but there's one of them in absolutely every scene. Like Iggy Pop's intro, like, yo, copy him a birthday suit.
Oh, naked.
But like, I mean, a square's ass for you in a minute, Mrs. Ricketts.
Exactly.
But like, let's not also bypass the coolest thing about this is like how he got the name Crybaby, and it's literally because he does the tear, the one eye tear, you know.
They have the lonely tear. I'll cry once, you know, 1 tear a day for what I have to do.
That's all they're getting out of this big old Crybaby. Oh God, he's so hot. I would have
one single salty tear is all they'll ever suck.
Immediately.
Like
my ovaries would just explode all over his face right then and
there. It is great. I mean, it did capture a time, and like historically, Johnny Depp was miserable on 21 Jump Street. Absolutely hated that show, hated Fox, hated everything about it, and just couldn't wait to tarnish that teen image.
You can see it. You can see it if you watch 21 Jump Street, how over it he was.
Especially when Richard Grieco came on. When Booker came on,
that's television fucking gold right there.
Yeah, but you could see
Grieco and Depp, like
you could see the hate.
Chris loves him some Booker.
I mean, no, I mean, like, listen, I mean, I
love a good feud, and Richard Grieco is cool. Depp is Booker like the coolest because I love them both.
When Booker came on the show, I was like, who is this fucking dude? I'm like, cool. Johnny Depp is the man. This guy. Stop. You know,
not on Jump Street, pal.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like,
that may be true in Baltimore. And then,
like, I mean, like, I remember
Squares and the Drapes, but on Jump Street, Booker is fucking king.
I think I remember finding out that Johnny Depp was like leaving the show, and like feeling like my world was like crashing. Like I literally sat there and go. I mean, I think I read it in a magazine. I read it somewhere, and I'm like, Johnny Depp's leaving 21 Jump Street.
I guess for me, that would be like when Jerry left the Spice Girls.
Yeah, maybe.
That's the thing. I didn't even know anyone ever left the Spice Girls. Why would you leave the Spice Girls?
Jerry did leave.
Wow.
Okay, I don't have time. I really don't have time for that right now. We gotta move on.
Going back to Crybaby, I mean, like, literally, like, for me, like, I was a huge Elvis fan too. So like, you know, so this just like was straight up my alley and so all the 50s scenes and everything, just having it in the 50s is something that I've always loved. I love 50s movies, like Rebel Without a Cause, seen it about 1,000,001 times. You know, all these movies, I watch 50s movies like they're new movies. Like, I'll watch them even though I've seen them about 1,000,000 times. I'll have to watch them. If I'm flipping channels, Rebel Without a Cause is on there, Streetcar Named Desire, put it on. If it's on there, I'm watching.
Yeah, you just leave it on.
I'm like, I'm watching it because I just loved that era. I've always said, like, when people say, like, if you get stuck in any era, now obviously I love the 80s, but I usually say the 50s. I usually say I would love to be in the 50s. Mickey,
we're friends again.
Yeah.
Well, there's this cosmic link between the 80s and the 50s, and like, even though you know, Crybaby came out in 1990, I'm sure it was mostly made in 89.
Well, it was baby boomers, man. That really, if you really, the whole nostalgia of the 50s is all about, it all revolves around baby boomers. You know, the peaceful.
That's when life seemed hopeful. That's when it was just like, oh my God, like, you know, like things seemed possible.
And then now we've been stuck in 80s nostalgia mode for decades, which is kind of an interesting thing. We've sort of taken what our parents viewed about the 50s, and we've sort of lapped it onto like the 80s and somewhat of the 90s too. Nostalgia kind of always happens for even early 2000s. Nostalgia is like a thing now.
I mean, when
yes,
let's be honest, we're our parents' age where they were in the 80s and 90s at
basically.
But we're parents' age, so we're doing that nostalgia of Hulu just did this great documentary on Barney. And the whole Barney surgeons and the Barney era and stuff like that.
Well, Barney Miller or Barney the actual
Barney the dinosaur.
Dinosaur?
Yeah. But it was Ed Mickey, you're a little bit
Barney Miller.
See that? I go to Barney Miller.
Barney Gumble. I want a documentary on Barney Miller,
but like these documentaries are now starting to happen, which is like, hey, remember this moment from the 90s? Hey, remember this happened in the 90s? Like, oh, by the way, if you want to feel old, this happened in 1994. Like just today, I read an article. It's like, hey, congratulations. R.L. Stein's Goosebumps is 30 years old. And I went, what?
You know what else is 30 years old? Dokken Back for the Attack, the album.
All right. That's it.
We couldn't do it without a Docket reference, folks. It had to happen.
Gone. Goodbye.
And we lost Ian again forever this time, I think. So my apologies, folks. I didn't realize there was more chat. Our chat is like in a couple of places today. Again, if anyone I missed, I see Mike Riffraff is in there. There's a lot of love for Rockabilly, Streets of Fire as well.
Streets of Fire,
a musical film.
Oh.
A lot of Pink Flamingos love in the chat. So again, I'm sorry if I missed you guys in there. Streets of Fire has the 50s revival style too. It's a good point Alex Bonafonte makes. And Scotty B says the 80s had a lot of the 50s fads, skinny ties, shoulder pads, pinstripe jeans, etc. Yeah. Also very true.
Leather jackets.
I also feel like there was that early 90s thing that's sort of like from Crybaby to like 90210 that like had that 50s James Dean thing, like the big sideburns kind of coming back, and like
the white t-shirts and like the short sleeves,
the rolled up,
the cuffed sleeves,
cuffed sleeves.
I mean,
I still do that.
Oh, absolutely.
Luke Perry was straight out of 1957.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. He was like James Dean. He was basically going that's that James Dean look.
Oh, definitely.
The same like pouty like looks on his face, like absolutely.
Well, there was even Showtime kind of took from like Crybaby and like around that time period, Showtime redid these movies based on the titles of older movies from like the and it was I can't remember what they called it, but it was kind of like Masters of Horror. It was kind of like just every week there was a new movie. But they got all these directors to basically take titles from Samuel Arkoff, American International teen pictures, and they redid them. And one of them was Runaway Daughters by Joe Dante. Walter Hill did one called Gunnin' Crazy. There's one with Renee Zellweger. It's like Shake, Rattle, and Roll. I think you might have seen the cover.
I think you've told me about these before because they sound, and it sort of like vaguely brings back a phantom memory.
One that really came out of that people know the most was Robert Rodriguez's Road Racers, which is straight. I mean, it's basically Crybaby, but not a musical. It's that 50s rebel rouser type movie. So there was this nostalgia that almost Crybaby may have started, but if not, at least was part of it. This kind of going back to like the Teenage Idol, James Dean, period there in kind of the early 90s.
Well, it's also interesting. I mean, like Hairspray like had done so well for him that literally this movie was having like movie companies were doing a bidding war.
There was like a bidding war over
to try to get this movie. And I
$12 million budget, like unheard of. Yeah, for him.
I mean, like, truth be told, like I've only ever seen really 2 John Waters movies, and it's Hairspray and Crybaby.
Wait, are you serious, Mickey?
Yeah, I'm just, I'm not gonna say that I'm not a fan of his work. I'm just gonna say that I just never took the time to watch these movies.
Bro, I'm so jealous of the films you're gonna watch in the future.
I mean, eventually I'm gonna catch these movies, but I'm just like, it's one of those things where I just haven't had the chance, or like it just hasn't come up, you know. But those two movies, like I loved Hairspray and I loved Crybaby. And
You are in for a treat, sir.
I did not like the remake of
Oh,
Hairspray, but whatever.
That's garbage.
Yeah.
airplane version of A Dirty Shame. Don't do that.
I mean, I'm gonna watch. I mean, to be honest, I'm gonna watch everything just because why not? Like if I'm going down one avenue, I might as well just say, okay, well, let me just watch the other stuff. I might not
eat
like
the whole
it.
cake, yo. Eat the whole cake.
I might not like it, but at the same token, I can say like I can be in a conversation with you guys and say I've seen that movie.
I don't know.
You can get through multiple Maniacs. That's okay. Don't. You'll be just fine.
Watch that one first, damn it.
Just watch them in chronological order.
Beautiful.
Probably. I mean, probably that would be the way.
I mean, really, if you really think about it, like Crybaby is, even against Hairspray, is like one of the cleanest. You know, it's like, you know how like why am I blanking on his name? David Lynch. You know, all of a sudden David Lynch did A Straight Story, which is about the Iowa farmer who rode his tractor to see his brother dying of cancer. It's the most Disney non-David Lynch of all time. And it's like Crybaby, and this, like, there are two John Waters, right? There is Female Trouble, and then there's Hairspray. Those are two different John Waters.
So which one do you like better, as far as in the sense, like if you were to go if somebody asked you which one you like, Hairspray or Crybaby, which one you...
I'll be flat out honest. I love the independence-ness of the Baltimore John Waters. Like I like the dirty filmmaking, independent, you know,
guerrilla filmmaker.
What?
Yeah, more indie, more indie.
Yeah, the guerrilla. I like the end. I do. I like John Waters when he did, and that's why I loved when he went back to Pecker. If for those of you who've seen Pecker, is a great film.
Great cast. Oh my God! Don't get me started.
Literally one of Edward Furlong's most non-Edward Furlong movies.
That's what I first saw him in. That was my first Edward Furlong movie.
I still say A Home of Our Own beats it by a little bit.
I don't think anything like Hairspray doesn't do Baltimore justice the way Pecker does Baltimore justice. You know, that is a Baltimore Aunt Barbara's house on 5th Street, Baltimore is what you see in Pecker, as opposed to like Hairspray. And let's be honest, I think a lot of John Waters got ruined by the musical of Hairspray. You know, I think there was a period there where people were like, oh, well, the Hairspray must be what this guy does. It's like, no, that's not.
Because he did two back-to-back movies. Because he did two back-to-back movies that were musicals, basically.
Yeah. And really, Hairspray is a musical without being a musical. Yeah, I do agree.
Are you talking about Hairspray the Broadway show or Hairspray the movie?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think almost.
Okay, yeah. No, because like people will see that and think, okay, let's go rent Pink Flamingos and have like a family movie night.
Yeah, right. This guy must be like Bob Fosse. Yeah.
Well, that's why I think Pecker was such a good, almost experience of him saying like, oh, I'm not the Hairspray Broadway John Waters. This is who John Waters.
Return to form.
That was before that anyway. That was like 4 years before the musical happened.
Oh, was it really? Okay. Well, I thought it was afterwards, but I love. And again,
Pecker was 98. Hairspray the musical was 2002. I know because I was there. I saw that original Broadway cast.
Oh wow!
Dang.
Well, at any rate, we are past pitch time, but one thing I do want to cover before we get into pitching our Crybaby sequels, and again, I want to remind everyone in the chat, this is your time to pitch your Crybaby sequels, but also, do you guys have, either a favorite line, a favorite quote, or a favorite song from Crybaby?
My favorite line or scene or whatever, or one of my favorite scenes, is the French kiss scene.
Okay.
Where, she's asking, like, I'm not going to get mononucleosis or whatever, however you say it or whatever like that. He's like, no. I just think it's like, so like, that was like a moment where you like, kind of like, she decided like, you know what, I'm going to go with this.
I loved Hatchet Face's confidence. She she had the confidence of Peggy Hill. And that is the confidence I aspire to have for myself.
And
Face.
I love the jail scene too because it reminds me of Jailhouse Rock.
I was just gonna say mine was the chain gang scene. That was one out. That's where I saw.
That was a good one, yeah.
Johnny Depp got into that number. Like you could tell he was having fun with that movie. That's the moment I was like, oh yeah, he likes this stuff. Like this is
interesting thing is that, and everyone in the movie says this, Johnny Depp apparently has 2 left feet. Apparently can't dance to save his life. So they had to choreograph things in a very specific way for him to be able to do those scenes.
But he's a rock star.
One shot. What's that?
But he is a rock star.
Is he a rock star, or is he an actor? Is he an actor who has a band?
He wanted to sing.
He's a great guitar player.
He might be a great guitar player, but has he written a hit song? I'm just trying to say, like,
no.
I mean, where's the Stairway to Heaven coming from?
But when you're playing with Jeff Beck, that's pretty damn good. You're playing with Jeff Beck,
great. Musicianship,
and Joe Perry.
Musicianship is something I deeply respect, but writing a song is a lot harder than learning to play fast, or like shred or whatever. Mm-hmm. Any rate, for me, like getting back to Hatchet Face, I think only Hatchet Face could have confidently given the line like, "Don't you got tits? Stick them out for God's sake!" Like, just so good. And is that 5-year-old me just howled at the moon. Like I just laughed hysterically at that.
Who is that? Like
her name is Kim McGuire. She is deceased. She's no longer with us.
Okay.
I found her right before she passed away. I found her right before she passed away. But she was actually originally cast for Kathy Bates' role in Misery.
Wow.
But they replaced her, and like, could you imagine like if that's where her career went? Because she didn't really do much after Crybaby. She's a crowd surfer in the L7 scene in Serial Mom, but she really didn't do much else.
Wow. And John Waters, you feel like with all his movies, it's like you get into that family and they'll have you back, like Ricky Lake or Tracy Lords or Rachel Talalay, or you know what I mean? He kind of keeps working with the same people over and over again. Patty Hearst, Mink Stoll.
Mink Stoll.
So underrated. Although I gotta say, another aspect of Crybaby that I always love is everyone's parents are amazing. Like the religious parents, Milton's parents, like Jesus is in your heart and he's in my son's too. Like, God damn it, Dad, you're embarrassing me.
The mom is a 50s pinup actress named Joey Featherton. Joey Heatherton.
The one with the speaking in tongues and shit.
Yeah.
Jesus is
yeah, she was a very big actress in the 1950s and the 60s. So he really did it. No, John Waters did his homework because all the parents, they were all played by like really famous
50s
people.
actors,
Yeah.
The dad who's the bus driver. Yeah.
Who was Wanda's dad from Ozzie and Harriet.
And then there's, I gotta just throw out a shout out to the Iron Lung scene. They're like, why not? I pay taxes on cigarettes, don't I? What do I get for those taxes? Happiness? Heck no! I get tuberculosis. Oh, Christ.
It's like, welcome to America.
It's cold. It's just like, it's so like whoever cut this movie cut the shit out of it, because there is not a wasted frame in this movie. Like it plays like, you could put a click track in this movie and everything's on beat. It's got such a perfect rhythm and cadence.
Did you know that they cut like a lot of scenes in the DVD? Yes. There's like at least a half hour full of deleted scenes.
Yeah, and I have the DVD.
They didn't tell the one little girl that her scene was cut, and she showed up to the premiere and she was like 10 years old.
Oh, the contortionist?
Yes.
Oh, that poor kid.
That would have killed, that would have crushed me. That would have crushed me. It
was something at the talent show, at Mrs. Vernon Williams' talent show, and it was like a thing they would do in the 50s. They would have they had this like 10-year-old girl who was like a contortionist.
And she was like turning around
twists and wheel, like turning herself into a human wheel and like all this stuff. And then they cut it from the movie because it does that. I mean, of all the shit they cut, that's the one that makes the most sense to me. Like, okay,
there's stuff that just wasn't necessarily needed.
They should have kept the fucking Tojo scene though.
Yeah,
With
well, she
Tojo
escapes,
having Tracy
exactly.
Lords in the champagne glass and like trying to like, you know, get nude photos of everybody and stuff. Like
they used those photos for like publicity shots. Like that was on the back of the VHS tape.
Yeah,
like,
really, her in the champagne glass.
Her in the champagne glass.
I do remember that because I had
Wow.
the DVD right over here somewhere. So.
Well, Universal made them cut that scene. Universal was afraid of Tracy Lords. They like wanted to minimize her involvement in the movie as much as possible, and you know, not publicize.
They showed up on set to arrest her.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, there's so
and
many fucking wild
they hid
stories.
her. They hid her.
Yeah, which you feel like that's like sweet street justice on whoever came to arrest Tracy Lords. You know, that like now you get to deal with like the carnival of John Waters people. Like they're gonna fuck with you like no one else.
Right. It's the end of Tu Wong Fu when they're all just like, oh yeah, you gave the wrong place to fuck with these people.
Yes. Oh God, such sweet justice. We gotta do Tu Wong Fu. Tu Wong Fu 2 on fucking VCR Redux one of these days. But we haven't even started pitching our Crybaby sequels.
No.
So Gold's Code has a pitch. She says, pitch, get some new hosts, and bring back Airborne, which I'm also always down for, minus the new host part.
That movie to be a thing, you all. That movie wasn't a thing then. It will never be a movie. Airborne will just sit in a dusty VHS bin at Bob's Shrimp Shack, which used to be a video store, in the basement. That's where Airborne
is a cult favorite. It is a cult favorite. Just
Airborne
like
is life, and our audience loves it, as do I. Also, there's going to be an Airborne Con next year, folks, to celebrate the 30th anniversary. You all better be there because I'm going to be there. I'm kidnapping Bobby and taking him and the Nicole's with me.
Gonna be there. I hope you guys have a great breakfast at the Hilton.
Dude, we are gonna fucking soul grind like.
Boy, you don't know how much I love me a free breakfast. That wasn't an insult.
Yeah, that was just a free breakfast. Me, I just wanna like hang with the people and be a part of this.
Can I have a
Airborne love, which I love this movie.
Like I'll sign autograph guy that hates Airborne, like just to see if anybody will take it.
You're not going to be too popular.
I was going to say, they're going to like come at you, man. That's the wrong place to do that.
Yeah. Don't do that to Snake, man. Yeah. Snake's going to cut you up.
Ian's going to show up there and they're going to be like, who's this square?
Anyway, getting back to the squares and drapes. Does anyone have a pitch? Or is there anything you don't want to see?
Well, here's the question.
Crybaby sequel.
Did Johnny Depp come back? That's the first question, because
did he or can he?
Well, the trial. I mean, like, did Johnny Depp come back into the grace of people again? I mean, that's going to be your first.
Well, first of all, that doesn't matter to John Waters.
No. Well, I agree with you on that. I mean, but to me, you can't do without Johnny Depp. You just can't.
But there's also a problem with Amy Locane as well. But I mean, at this point, it is what it is. I mean,
and Kim McGuire is no longer with us, so there's a lot of people from this movie who are not here anymore.
Yeah,
Ricky
Lake. Ricky Lake probably would. She would do it, but
sure.
I don't want to see a sequel. To be honest, I don't.
I need a sequel. Tracy said that she would. John Waters is the one person she would come back and like say like one word in a film for.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it leaves room for a sequel the way it ends, like the possibility of a future.
I mean, yeah, you could see them having a kid, and it would be interesting if the kid was more square. So like that would be really cool to have that kind of like, that whole thing where, I mean, like, and it's Johnny Depp's kid. I mean, he's not going to not love his kid. And
it would have to be about acceptance. It would have to be about acceptance.
And so literally it would just be about that. And then, the community saying like, oh, your parents, man, they're so, weird.
Well, the only thing I thought about.
You could set it in the 60s.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. The only thing I thought of is if you had a sequel, like, to be honest, you wouldn't have Johnny Depp as a lead, but you would probably have somebody as Crybaby, or have somebody who, like you all said, like Crybaby's son, right? I think it'd be interesting if Crybaby goes from that world to the 1960s Baltimore world where John Waters started.
Mm-hmm.
right? That kind of that underground psychedelic Baltimore era, which would work.
Billy rooftops, yes.
I think that would actually, and do the dirty version of Hairspray. Do the dirty Baltimore Hairspray, like don't do this nice Baltimore,
But I wouldn't. I mean, the movie was like, we talked about it already. The movie didn't do well in the theaters.
Yeah,
and it's a cult classic. So, if you don't have Johnny Depp in it, at the very least,
you got to have a cameo. He's got to have
not even a cameo. You got to have him in there, like.
Yeah.
Here's the thing.
If you want any eyes on this project, you have to have.
First of all, John Waters has his fans. John Waters could do anything, and people would see it. Second of all,
he is making a new film right now.
Second of all, if you want this movie set in the '60s, how do you have Johnny Depp play like he looks like 20 years ago? I don't know. He doesn't. I don't know if he's gonna pass.
Ultimately, I
late 20s now.
So would it be set in the 90s then to like make him age appropriate?
To age appropriate, it would have to be set in 30 years. Yeah, about 32 years later. That's like the late 80s, early 90s, around the time the film was made.
I don't want Crybaby with the kid and play haircut. Like I don't
want sad old fucking Wanda Woodward. Like I don't need that.
If it was set in the 90s,
that's what I'm saying.
Still have the haircut.
Take these things into account.
He can still have the pompadour,
Johnny Depp
the
DA in the 60s. Like no. I think there's enough. Honestly, I think there's a universe here. And hear me out for a sec. We've got like squares and drapes, and they became household terms, and these were like Baltimore words. You know what I mean? Like people didn't. They knew squares, but like drapes, like I'd never heard of a fucking drape in my life.
They're probably more known as greasers or like
greasers, or whatever, like bikers,
juvenile delinquents,
juvenile delinquents, anything, riffraff,
stuff like that,
trash.
So I think there's a world here.
Mickey Bobbies. That's what
Think about who takes like Mrs. Vernon Williams, right? Like think about her story, right? Because she clearly is gonna like go down a couple notches in the eyes of the community because her daughter's dating like the king of the drapes now.
She kind of switched over too.
She switched over. She turned sides. Thank God for it.
She's a scrape.
Bobbies are
the scrape, right?
Just remember that.
What's that?
Between the Mickeys and the Bobbies are the good people.
We're all good people.
But I'd rather be a drape, so I hope the drapes are the good people. So
the drapes are the good guys, exactly. So I think first of all, I always thought Wanda had enough of a character to do a spinoff about, and you don't have to I get it. You can't if it's going to be the 50s, you can't have Tracy Lords anymore, but you could have Tracy Lords play Wanda's mother. And you could, have someone play a young Wanda, and it's like the next year, Crybaby's gone, and like, she goes through all those things they warn you. This will happen to Drapette girls, like, this is blah blah. She runs away from home. She gets mixed up with like you give that storyline like the credence it deserves. I think there's a movie there.
You could still have Pepper in it. You could still have Ricky Lake.
Yeah,
I like the title "Crybaby Girl." That's a good title right there.
Crybaby Girl's not bad.
There was actually supposed to be the reason there was such a long gap between Polyester and Hairspray is because John Waters had an idea to make a movie about Hatchet Face by herself, and it was all about like a girl who was like she was like beautiful everywhere but the face, like type of thing, but like that never came off the ground, and then he incorporated her into Crybaby, so like maybe like there could even be like a prequel type of thing, like you said, like Wanda has enough of a storyline to tell what's going on in that house, like what happened in that house to make her the way she is, rebelling against her like goody parents.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Anna's mater and father will treat you just like one of the family, right? Yeah.
Let's all put on a faux cap and learn something new about a foreign culture.
Well, I just always assumed that Wanda was kind of like Amy Locaine's character. For the life of me, I can't come up with her name.
Allison Vernon Williams.
Yeah, I always just assumed that she was much like her, where she was just a square or two, and then eventually.
I could see that.
Oh no, I always assumed Wanda came out of the womb smoking a cigarette, saying, telling the doctor to beat it, creep, like that's the
poor thing.
I don't feel like you turn like that, like, oh, like, your parents are so square or so,
But I mean, in the deleted scene, it showed it, like, when she is trying to get out of his car, but there's no door handles, and she's like, "Help! Call my parents." She's like, "I'm a virgin. I've never done anything like this."
I do remember
the wall kind of comes down. That her like bad girl thing is kind of a front.
It's an image. It's an image.
But still, she
is
also.
It's also kind of.
I am not saying she's not.
I also think it's literally the fourth wall coming down and saying that, I've never done anything like this. It's so like the audience knows that's not true,
Wink, wink.
Wink, wink, ha ha ha. I'm the most famous person, like, whatever. But I also think there's enough. You could just tell a story about Turkey Point. Turkey Point is just this incredible place. Like, I want to see what's going on at Turkey Point the next year.
That's week, actually not a bad idea. Like, the Legend of Crybaby is like so big.
A Ramona Ricketts story like that. I would fucking do Ramona.
Actually, I kind of like the Legend of Crybaby. That's actually an interesting. We don't have movies like that anymore.
Yeah, like he's the king.
Yeah.
Who's next up? Like, maybe he's gone away. Like, him and Allison, like, they went away from Turkey Point, went away from Baltimore, moved out, whatever the case may be.
Moved to now New York or LA or something.
Now
Chicago.
Maybe Ramona is still there and stuff like that. She's in Turkey Point. Turkey Point, she's not gonna leave Turkey Point.
Oh, hell no. That's her legacy.
Iggy Pop could still be there too, so like,
as could Wanda. I always thought that she would pass it on to Wanda.
Like,
or when I watch the movies, I always feel like she's gonna take over
Pepper's son,
Ramona, someday.
Pepper's son could be
possible.
The next Crybaby.
True. Pepper's kids. You forget she got 3 of them now.
She got 3 of them. Yeah.
True.
Pepper's son. Why am I blanking on that?
Snare Drum and Susie Q.
Snare Drum.
That's right. Snare Drum. Oh my god. And that's another one. Like the little Chatterbox orphanage woman is another just small role, perfectly cast. Just absolute, like, everyone had like a substitute teacher or a babysitter, some mean ass old lady like that they knew.
She gave off Mrs. Sturrock vibes.
Oh yeah, big time Mrs. Sturrock vibes for sure. For sure.
That's the thing with 2 heads. So now this little school clothes together.
You're not mentally prepared. Yeah. So good. But there are, I think, enough opportunities that's worth like taking another look, taking a deeper dive into. See, like, Turkey Point's got like its own life force to it.
That would be kind of cool.
And also, like, I did this for Dazed and Confused about the Moon Tower, but like, you could make a whole movie like an American Graffiti kind of thing. They're all coming back because Turkey Point's closing down. It's the last weekend or the last summer of Turkey Point, or the last whatever at Turkey Point.
What, American Graffiti musical number though? Like that's it.
Well, I mean, it's going to be a John Waters movie. No
I'm
matter
trying
what.
to picture American Graffiti as a musical now.
I get what you're saying though. I mean, because to me, Crybaby, and this I might be reaching kind of deep for our audience. So, if none of you understand this, I totally get it. But have you ever see like Little Abner? Or do you know the Little Abner? Well, okay, so making note, like, so it's kind of like Crybaby, like the hootenanny version of where he comes from. Was kind of like this, the hillbilly, the rockabilly world. Like, there's a whole movie in the rockabilly world with the Iggy Pop, with Susan Terrell, like all that kind of stuff. Like, you could act that something within that.
Yeah.
World.
I mean, even like Ramona Ricketts tries to.
We just had an Elvis movie, so I mean.
Yeah.
Did we? Did we really? Sure about that?
Shade.
I haven't seen it yet. I'm a huge Elvis fan. I think I'm gonna like it. So
I think I'm gonna pass on Baz Luhrmann throwing glitter right at the fucking screen for 2.5 hours.
Again, I go back to Moulin Rouge.
Yeah, hey,
the only thing worse than Moulin Rouge is Moulin Rouge One.
Are you gonna say you hate freaking Australia now too? You
No, I love Australia. I don't know where the fuck. I didn't know Baz Luhrmann's Australian. I just know he's a shitty filmmaker. Sorry, shots thrown. I'm in rare form today. He's talented, but I just don't like those glittery fucking movies that he makes, and I don't think there's any substance to them. They're all style, and yeah. Who the fuck am I to say these things, right? I'm a loser from New Jersey. But any rate, I'm a loser who pitched you Crybaby sequels. So
are saying these things. Like that's how I picture Chris. Baz Luhrmann. You know, freaking, you know, like what a
I mean, just every one of his movies seems like the exact same movie as the last one. So I mean, out of the Romeo and Juliet was good. I'll give him that. The 90s Romeo and Juliet.
No, I did not like that.
Everything since then though. Oh.
Now the friendship's off. God dang it, Mickey. I'm so tired of this back and forth that we have to do.
You really like that Romeo and Juliet?
Oh, okay. I will say this. Do I think it's like the greatest version of Romeo and Juliet? No. Do I like that it got kids to actually understand Romeo and Juliet as a teacher?
Absolutely. Oh, here comes the teacher.
I get that. I get
it.
I thought it was,
but at the same token, I want to say,
to be fair, it felt fresh. To be fair, it felt fresh at the time, and I know we're getting way off the rails here. It did feel fresh at the time, and then nothing else from him has felt fresh to me. So
Romeo and Juliet. Romeo
and Juliet, a much better film. Agreed. Much more fresh. At least you hope that's got to be fresh.
Anyway, the youth of America absolutely read Bill Shakespeare because Romeo and Juliet. Like.
Well, hey, we all have our reasons, and we can argue about which one is really better art and or more original.
Whatever gets you to the dance.
Whatever gets you to the dance, he says. Anyway, before we wrap it up, guys, is there anything you got coming out you want to let the people know about? Articles, recordings, interviews?
Sure, why not? My show should be coming up soon. Heather Hopper is my first interview, and then next week we got Susan Seidelman, the director of Desperately Seeking Susan, She Devil, and Smithereens.
I am desperately seeking that episode. I cannot wait. That's gonna be so much fun. Any rate, in the meantime, you Fandom fans might want to check out tomorrow's Andor Live panel, as well as Monday's Walking Dead Reactor panel with our very own Governor Captain Kyle. And of course, we want you to come back next Wednesday at 9 p.m. when we embark on an intergalactic bug hunt for our Starship Troopers episode. As always, if you enjoyed this video, the best way to help is to smash that like button. No, there's no Andor panel tomorrow, they tell me. But anyway, the best way to help is to smash that like button and leave a comment telling us what movie or TV franchise that you want us to cover on a future episode of VCR Redux. And since you're already doing that, you might as well go ahead and like, subscribe, and follow Fandom Spotlight, the Hollow 9 Network, and Pop Culture Punk. Till then, back up those Betamax, rewind those Laserdiscs, and we'll see you at the movies.